We're joined by Elena Pompei from our digital media site ENTR in partnership with Deutsche Welle. You've been on quite the road trip.
Yes, we went to Scotland with my colleague Claudia Coliva, and we went through the entire country from Glasgow to the Isle of Skye, so it was incredible. And we went to meet young people and ask a question which was quite simple, which was, what does it mean to be Scottish today? And what is quite interesting is that we found that, although in a way the independence question isn't at the forefront of the political campaign as much as it would have been about 10 years ago, for younger people it still is incredibly important, and it's a matter of identity, even though obviously they couldn't vote back in 2014 for the independence vote or in 2016 for the Brexit vote. This really questions them today in terms of what it means to be Scottish and what is this vote for ultimately.
And this question of independence is important. They're not. So there is incumbent fatigue, though, with the SNP.
That is a very good point. I think, in a way, what we've seen, at least with the people we spoke to, is that the SNP still holds quite a strong majority, in a way, in the polls, and that's because of the independence question. One of the two people we interviewed, Ian, he's 23, he's a boat skipper on the Isle of Skye. He grew up in a very, Scottish family, identifies as Scottish, and for him, the vote for the SNP is clear because that's the only way to independence. Annie, on the other hand, she's 25, she's from Glasgow. She's got very unionist views, come from a very pro-unionism family, and the view is quite different from her. So I prepared a couple things for you to hear.
What it means to be Scottish? I would always say first and foremost that I'm a Scianach, is what we call it in Skye. I'm a Skye man, and then a Gael, second of all, and then a Scot, then European, and then probably British at the...
Reluctantly.
Yeah, reluctantly British.
I grew up in a household where they identified as British, not Scottish. I'm British, Scottish, European.
Okay, interesting. So the difference of opinion over whether they're unionists or more separatist. What about EU identity? Because I know that in Scotland, they're all for returning to the European.
Yes, that was one of the most interesting things we found, because despite their very opposing views on independence and on, what's the way forward for Scotland, the EU sentiment was incredibly strong in both of them. They both acknowledged that for them, the loss of, leaving the EU was incredibly strong. And of course, Ian, who, again, is the more sort of like strongly independent sort of character in the documentary, is someone who kept insisting on the idea that in 2014 the pro-unionist sort of won because, saying that Scotland would have lost membership to the EU, and then that's still what happened, despite the country voted unanimously to remain in the EU. And so this is a loss that they still very strongly. And Annie as well, she said quite openly that if leaving the EU meant a chance for Scotland to rejoin the EU, leaving the UK to rejoin the EU, that would definitely be something that she would be open to. But she obviously sees the route as being fairly complicated.
Fairly complicated for now. You said you spoke with young people. What our viewers need to remember is that in Scotland, it's very young people who get to vote. 16. 16,
yes. That is the lower end of the vote. We spoke to people aged 19 to 23, 25. We couldn't find the 16-year-olds we were hoping for. But they have, what we've seen in the polls as well, and speaking to people on the streets, is that they all... So the vast majority of younger people tend to be very pro-EU, and this means in a way that they're more likely to vote for pro-independence parties such as the SNP, which could partly explain the majority that we see they might get in the upcoming elections on Thursday.
All right, and of course we'll be covering that with a special edition of the France 24 debate on Wednesday in the build-up to those elections, because they're not just voting in Scotland. Again, they're also voting in Wales and in England. Elena Pompei, many thanks for that. And that is up already, or it's going to be up soon on the ENTR website?
It's up. You can find us on ENTR on YouTube. It's a documentary, so you're going to find incredible things on there we haven't spoken here, but it's really worth a watch. So thank you for having me.
Elena Pompei, many thanks.